So I want to talk a bit about borrower defense to repayment, which is a legal program that allows borrowers who have enrolled in a school or actually continued their enrollment in a school and you took out federal student dollars to attend. If there is some type of misleading information, there was some fraudulent activity, other things that are covered under the borrower defense regulations that will allow you to get your student loans discharged if you've experienced this type of misconduct by the school that you attended. Let's look at the borrower's defense because there's been some changes with the passing of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Things have kind of changed a bit. So it's important that you know, especially if you have a pending borrower's defense application or you plan on submitting a borrower's defense application, that you have an understanding of how your application will now be evaluated. So let's go to the borrower's defense to repayment page, which is on the student aid website. It is a free application. And you can access it by going to studentaid.gov, click on loan forgiveness, click borrow defense to repayment, and it will take you to the borrow defense page. We're going to click on updates about borrow defense because if you have attended one of these schools that is on this side here, you just want to take a read and see exactly what's going on, what type of lawsuit has taken place, what the settlement looks like, because some of these are based on times of attendance when you went to these particular colleges. So you want to see if any of this affects you. And that way, if you need to do anything as far as with your application or include anything which from this information, you want to be able to attach that with your application. But here's where you'll see that pop-up box. And basically what this is talking about during the Biden administration, what the administration was trying to do, or what they did, was created a rule that basically would kind of streamline or standardized rules under evaluating borrower defense applications. But there was a lawsuit against it. There was a lawsuit against the rule. So there was challenges that was brought up by some colleges, basically because they're not happy about, anything that would make it easier for borrowers to get their student loans discharged under borrower's defense when you're making a complaint against or you're filing accusations against a school. So there's an injunction against this 2022 rule. Well, because this case wasn't technically completed, wasn't finalized, what the current administration did, the Trump administration has done, is with the passing of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, there's a provision that is in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that basically speaks to this 2022 rule and when it will go into effect or when it cannot go into effect during a certain time frame. So if you go to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and you can just go to Google, type in One Big Beautiful Bill, and I like to go to congress.gov to get the information because this PDF version here, the PDF version allows for you to kind of search through the information. And when you get to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, if you just type in regulatory relief, let me scroll back out, type in regulatory relief, hit enter, it'll take you to subtitle F of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And this is where you'll see the delay of the rule under section 85001 is where you will see the delay of the rule relating to borrower defense to repayment. And basically what it is telling us is that so any loans that originated prior to July 1st, 2035, right here, this 2022 rule will not be in effect. So basically what that is stating that the application has changed and you want to read the application so that way you can see exactly how your loans are going to be evaluated and under which regulation. Will it be 2016 regulation, 2019, or anything that's created after the fact, okay? So we'll go back to the student aid website to get to the borrower's defense application, and you can get to it by just clicking here, apply online for borrower defense relief. And the instructions for the borrower's defense application, it's important that you read the instructions because the instructions tell you everything that you need to know. It tells you everything what's to come in the application and what things you need to provide in order to submit a complete application. So here it gives you all the instructions and it tells you that you can submit this application, whether you took out the loans or if you're a parent plus borrower, you can submit an application based off what took place while your child was in attendance. But it tells you the type of conduct that might make you eligible for student loan relief in the process by which the Department of Education will review your claim. And it says it may differ based upon when you took out your loans. And they tell you if you've consolidated your loans, we evaluate your application based on when your loans was consolidated. In general, loans taken out or consolidated on or prior June 30th, 2017. And they give you the section of law what the application will be evaluated under. And it's important that you go look at that section. You want to look at the regulation so that way it's clear on how your application is going to be evaluated. And basically what you do, you can just highlight that section there in the application. Because if you know when your loans were taken out or when your loans were consolidated, what year, then you know what section of the borrower's defense regulation that you're going to be evaluated. And for some of you, it may be evaluated under multiple sections of the borrower's defense regulations. And you just want to know, you want to look at those regulations. So that way, when you submit the application, you're providing everything that you need and you have an understanding of how they're going to look at the application. So once you highlight that, again, Google is like your best friend sometimes. And you go to Google again. I like to use Google. And then that's where you're going to paste the information. You're going to paste that in, hit enter. And it's going to take you directly to borrower defense, to the regulations connected to borrower defense. And that is where you're going to scroll down, just like the application states, 34 CFR section 685.206C. So we want to go to, we know that we're in 34 685.206, but we want to go down to C. So we've got 685.206A, B, and then here is our C. And this is where it starts. If your loans were dispersed prior to July 1st, 2017, this is how it tell you how you may assert a borrower defense under this paragraph. Not only that, they give you all the rest of them as well, depending on when your loans were dispersed or your consolidation. But you also want to understand what the wording is and the language is in the application. There's definitions for it. So when there's the word misrepresentation, the regulations spell out to you. It tells you what it means when we are talking about a misrepresentation. Not only that, financial harm. So you want to read that information so that way you have an understanding of the language that's in the application. Exclusion. It also tells you what things are excluded to bring a claim against the school under borrower's defense. And you want to have an understanding of that as well. All the information is here for you to have an understanding of the application. When you're submitting the application, like I said, make sure that you are reading the instructions and that you know exactly what's required of you, and that the information here that you're asserting yourself, advocating for yourself, and not only that, making sure that this claim is based around, if it was not for these misrepresentations, if it was not for these misleading statements that were made to you, that it's clear that you would not have taken on federal student loans if it were not for that misleading information that was provided to you. Good luck, y'all.